Ramil Moggan Cahirley, and thank you, Minister, and thank you for a copy of the speech. I'm not sure what the colour represents, but it's an unusual colour. Anyway, thanks very much for it, because it's handy to have it. It sets out the background, and of course we're here because we do need the approval of the Dáil under Article 29.4.7 in relation to extending the list under the article, and I agree with that, and we should extend the list to include hate crimes. And I've no difficulty with that whatsoever, particularly to include hate speech and hate crime, and it'll be coming back before us again. So I've no problem with that at all. And indeed, it's been already referred, but the Commission report to us sets out clearly why this is necessary, and it shows, page 10, research shows that hate speech on social media leads to more crimes against minorities in the physical world, and then they set out all of them. Hate speech online has led to a rise in violence against refugees and immigrants, ethnic and religious minorities, and then it goes on to give just some of the examples of the scale of the hate speech and hate crime. 1 in 10, 11% of the LGBTIQ respondents say that they had been physically or sexually attacked because they were a member of that group. Respondents, and so I wanted, hate speech and hate crime against persons of Asian origin, particularly Chinese, or those perceived to be of Asian origin, had also increased significantly. And this survey was carried out by the Fundamental Rights Agency. Anti-Semitism, of course, had also increased. 40% of Jews in the EU fear being physically attacked. And similarly, the Muslims, 27%, had experienced instances of hate-motivated harassment in the previous 12 months. And then, significantly, women, and in particular young women, are targeted by gender-based hate speech online or offline. And according to the 2020 Global Survey, 52% of young women and girls experienced online violence, including threats. And it goes on to older people as well. And I know you're familiar with these statistics, and that's the background to this, and we couldn't but support it. But let's go back to the title of this document, the European Commission, A More Inclusive and Protective Europe. Now, I certainly do not think, and I'm on the record for saying that Europe is moving in a more inclusive way. Quite the opposite. Now, it's one thing to bring in legislation which down the road I will be welcoming, subject to looking at the details of it, based on opting into this decision. It's another thing, the reality on the ground of what is Europe becoming. And you've heard us here on this side of the House repeatedly talk about Fortress Europe, which is coming from organisations on the ground, and what has happened in terms of othering anyone that's different. And so, again, it's already been mentioned, and there are frightening images coming from the Spanish enclave in northern Africa, and people desperately fighting for their life, drowning in the Mediterranean, climbing over fences, and all to try and get a better life. So ultimately, really, as leaders and as women, we need to come back and say, what's happening here in relation to Europe? And we talk about a Europe of our values. What values is it when we look on refugees of a particular race, colour or country in one way, and refugees from a different colour, race in a different way? What happens when we can suddenly change the laws, which is welcome, in relation to refugees from the Ukraine, but we refuse point blank to have changed the laws in any speedy manner in relation to those in direct provision? 2,000 of whom have status and can go nowhere. A huge big fight to get a right to work, and then only after a certain time, and so on, with all restrictions. With this hand we can change the law just like that. This hand we don't, depending. And then we look at the Yemen, and I've repeatedly quoted these figures in relation to the refugee. Shocking figures, shocking pictures. 10,000 children dead in 7 years. Do we think about that? Do we think about it? 370,000 people dead, including the 10,000 children. Almost 20,700,000 people in dire need of humanitarian assistance and so on. Time is limited, but it's a duty of us as a neutral country to take a reflective approach as to how we deal with each situation as it arises in the most humanitarian way possible. But at the same time, to begin to look what's causing all of this all these wars? What is leading to this? Why do we support certain countries and not others? Why do we not take action in relation to Israel, notwithstanding that I'm fully stand with the Jewish people against any anti-Semitic language or attacks? But why do we not take sides with, not sides, why do we not stand with Amnesty International in relation to it?
Thank you.
2 seconds, but thank you.